Good evening, Minister.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. You must be very busy, but I must say thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
I'm so happy. Now I have to figure out where's the video because
Yes, I was going to say we would like to see you.
yeah.
So I was telling Pamela, so the easiest way to do it is kind of tap on your frame, and then it should like there should be a pop up where there's a camera icon that has a line through it. You just press on it and then it switches it on. Yeah, so just tap on your
Hi,
frame.
everyone.
Hi, Mama. Welcome back.
Oh, I can turn it. Oh, actually, I can turn it on for you if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I've sent you the invitation.
There we are.
There we are.
There we are.
There we go.
Why is the name different?
What do you mean?
Whose name?
Yeah, but you see here, who's out here sharp?
He's gone. He was in the comment section.
Okay, that box that I'm in is written out here.
Oh no! On the side
Is it still showing?
Yes, that's why I was finding it very weird that the way this is coming out. How are you guys?
Very well, Minister. Very well.
Good. Very good.
How are you?
We survive. I just came out of a webinar, so I just switched from there to join here. So
Nice. What was the webinar about?
we're looking at addressing intersectionality, and how do we actually make sure that this becomes still the national democratic revolution agenda? Who are we leaving behind around issues of intersectionality, and how do we find expression in the work that we do to still advance the Freedom Charter? So yeah, it was with the student movement SASCO. So we continue to give this educational session in the work they do.
Okay, that sounds very progressive, and good luck with that, I guess. So also just to like let you know, also Isaac on the first frame, he is all the way in the UK, and then me and the lady Manjamase down there, we are actually from South Africa. So I think just to kind of familiarize everyone of our audience as well, just to kind of briefly explain what your office does and what does it target, where does your authority also lie in shaping kind of, publicizing policies for youth, women, and personal disabilities.
Indeed. So good evening, everybody. Hi, Isaac. Which part of UK are you in?
I'm in London.
Okay, good. So you've got good weather now before winter.
Just about. The flu's just caught me, but because of your presence, I couldn't miss today.
Okay, no, thank you. No, I'm really happy for this session. So let me just appreciate you organizing this engagement. So I am Activist Steve Letsike. I am Deputy Minister in the Presidency, responsible for women, youth, and persons with disability. So we have a ministry, of course, but we have a full department. And the history of the department also has taken different shapes over the many years, from having, just the status of women in the office of the president, to women, children. In the past, it has always shaken up to different definitions, but of course, in the last two administrations, it then was solidified as women, youth, and persons with disability. This is not a service-oriented department. Its premise is really policy development. It's also around monitoring, coordinating what all other departments are doing in relation to women, youth, and persons with disability. And the other aspect is to continue advocating and also mainstreaming issues of gender and youth, persons with disability. So our mandate really speaks about that, looking at empowerment of women, looking at youth development, as well as the protection of rights of persons with disability. We have of course, a minister, Minister Steve Letsike, who of course is both of us are from the same political party. As you all know that right now, after the 2024 elections, we've got what we call government of national unity. 9 parties all together come together to govern, for that matter. So many political parties are part of this, and both myself and Mr. Chikunga National Congress. But I think let's go back, of course, to this department work. These 3 different groups are 3 different constituencies. When you speak about women's empowerment, first we have
I'm so sorry, Minister. Is it possible to just speak a bit closer because it's a bit faint?
Okay, can
I
you
think
hear me
also
now? Is this better?
we muted our mic because I think also the echo is maybe because of all these other sounds from our
Okay, tell me if it's better. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just gonna mute myself as well, just so that we'll ask the questions after. Um,
Okay.
so I'm gonna mute myself now.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think the premise that I wanted to kick off this discussion is an understanding of, why these groups, why do we have a ministry just responsible for women, youth, and persons with disability doing this phenomenal work around policy, around, issues of development and protection of rights. Women's issues are historic in South Africa and like in globally as well. When you realize that the historic elements that has led women in the periphery of inequality, why women in South Africa marched in 1956, this is 69 years ago, 20,000 of them marched to the Union Building fighting against the pass laws. And these were women in all their diversity, which is quite unique when you understand the history of racial division and racial inequality in South Africa. But women in 1956, black, white, colored Indians, came together to fight the pass laws, to fight gender inequality, because the common struggle of patriarchy, sexism was experienced by them. So it's quite important to realize that. But of course, you have to understand that issues, like I was saying even earlier, you cannot separate intersectionality. When you speak about black women, you still face the connection of race, of class, of gender. When you speak of course, around queer women, you even have to add the question of being queer and, being a woman, being black, being also from township or rural communities. And then when you also speak about women with disability, so the intersectional lens is that you cannot separate the struggles for that matter, that have to understand the context of why women are not paid the same amount, why do we have a burden of care, why do we have many of these challenges, why we don't have 50-50 in terms of leadership positions, in terms of many of these issues. So you are fighting a systematic issue, and that's why we continue to focus on women empowerment when we speak about education access, opportunity access, and how to uplift women. It's not at the cost of men, but it's at the relevance of ensuring that women are empowered and they are emancipated in the work they do. But in terms of youth agenda, no doubt, when you look at the global scenario, when you look at the South African story, the current data that is often revealed, of the 42% of all the unemployed people in South Africa, 62%, that's more than half, is young people. And when you look at our definition of youth between 18 and 35, that's a very big number, that we don't have young people in employment opportunities. And we also have a big number of 3.4 million South African young people, neither in employment, neither in education, neither in training. So you are dealing with a crisis. You are dealing with a complete a challenge of not being able to facilitate, the transition from schooling to workplace, from schooling to self dependence, for that matter. So that's why we continue to focus on young people. And what we are now even at as a department, we are actually now introducing a youth development policy that will make it law in terms of what everybody else is doing at government level, at private sector, any NGOs, on everything in terms of what we need to be doing in responding to young people. And the last point I want to raise, of course, is issues of persons with disability. No doubt the stigma, the stereotypes, the issues of that affects persons with disability, they're in the margins. They are even, left in despair. These are some of the key issues that we have to battle with. Job opportunities are much lesser, when it comes to persons with disability. And also understanding that disability is so diverse. It's so complex. Some are physical, some are non-physical. But we want to club everybody and think that people are going to be treated the same. It shouldn't be. Also, persons with disability have got, rights, have got lives, and they also have to enjoy independency. So even it starts with the concept of reasonable accommodation. Whether if somebody enters my house, are they able to, if they are on a wheelchair, are they able to, get a ramp to access the house? If they come to your own homes, are they able to access your houses? If people who are deaf, for that matter, what kind of subtitle? We're fighting this in TVs. What AXA is supposed to be doing is supposed to make sure that anything that plays on screen has got subtitle. That's law into the country. So we cannot deny a cohort of our population to be excluded because we have not made it easier for them to access these opportunities. So that's in a nutshell trying to tell you why we focus on these specific populations, why we have to continue to secure their rights, but also what is incredible, and we'll speak about it maybe in your questions, what South Africa is doing, what are some of the targets we have put. But I want to maybe just say to you, President Ramaphosa announced even targets about access to the public procurement, public procurement policy itself, to saying, how do we change the trajectory that we're working with? Women, youth, and persons with disability, that they have targets. So that means in the public purse, every money that is being spent in the public procurement, 40% must go to women-owned-led businesses. 30% must go towards youth-led businesses, and 7% must go to person with disability-led businesses. And now it's going to be the tricky thing about whether those enterprises that we have across the country, are they going to put people as frontiers, or are we going to give those opportunities to those we are actually targeting and to change their lives? So I hope it gives you at least an idea of where we are, and we can talk about what government has been doing.
It's gonna take a while because now we have to all unmute to have a chat. I think I'm curious to know, because you're saying that your office mainly deals with policies and it's not service driven. I'm curious if now, for example, maybe a 19-year-old, right, in rural Limpopo or Mitchell's Plain, what's the most direct way that maybe your office and the way that you guys have started now planning and trying to strategize, how would the policies you guys are coming up with in your office, how would it impact my life today?
Look, the most important thing is that we do have what we call mechanisms, and there's one agency, of course, that is linked to our department, which is what we call the National Youth Development Agency, NYDA. You probably have heard of it. What many South Africans don't know, the budget we have, which is equivalent to 1 billion as a department, A big portion of that, which is amounting to 70%, actually goes to our National Youth Development Agency. So, as a department, we are almost like a conduit. Treasury allocates money. This money comes in and it passes through our bank account and it goes to an NYDA bank account, so that this money goes to support the work of young people. So a young woman in Cape Flats, a young woman in Lusikisiki, a young woman in Donga or in Phuket, we have about 44 offices across the country of National Youth Development Agency where young women can walk in, where young women can actually go and get services through the National Youth Development Agency. One, they can help you even register your own company and skill you, empower you. You can actually get training on how to manage your business. You can be skilled throughout different opportunities, and then you can also have an opportunity to apply for a grant. So for those who are pursuing to be entrepreneurs, those who are running simple things like we do in townships, like a car wash, like a small internet cafe, like a laundry shop, like a catering service. These are small little businesses, but we know they thrive because it's a sector that young people also understand. We've seen a lot of young people who are doing incredible work. Let me give you an example. There's a guy called Inga. This young boy from Langa in Cape Town, who I met through this social media platform that you and I are using, TikTok. Inga survived a shooting a few years ago when he visited his family in Soweto. He went in the area, there was a shooting at a bar and he happened to be shot. One of the guys who was shot, who lost his legs and parts of his end. But this is a young man, 24, who now is disabled. And Inga has a skill. Of course, Inga is one of those who was a landscaper, who believed in doing things for himself. And he shared his story on TikTok. And I got to, when you scroll and you're just seeing stories pop, Inga's story pop like that, and he was sharing how he was doing landscaping, and he's got a machine doing. So he didn't give up on himself. And I'm doing this because this is an inspirational story. You survive. You have an opportunity as a young person. You lost your jobs because you used to just get a job easily. But he showed that he didn't give up. And he was just sharing this story, and he said, he gets a job there and so forth. Sometimes he doesn't have those opportunities. And I said to him, when I come to Cape Town, I'm going to visit you. And I did visit him. And in visiting him, just in Langa, for those who knows the area, in fact, he was in Kailicha. The area there, the informal settlement, those shacks, those zozos are next to one another. The street is just right there, So you can understand the level of, different poverty levels that exist in that area. So we met her mother there. They used to have a small tuck shop where they used to sell chips and whatever. But next to there's a small garden, possibly 10 square or 20 square meter of that garden. But Inva was planting spinach and so forth. And when we went to visit and we asked him, so what is your plan? What do you plan? And he spoke about, no, I just want to be in agriculture. I want to do, a few things. I want to continue with my landscaping business. But he was then onboarded into the NYDA program. He was trained and he was supported. And today, Inga is selling his produce, fresh produce, and not only just selling it, but percentage of it, he's actually supporting his community, those who are vulnerable and so forth. So I'm just trying to say, we've seen many young people who have gone this. Yesterday, I had a program that was launching the top 10 young women that are involved in the ICT. But this is work that we do in collaboration with other companies like MTN, EBL, and so forth. All these women, year-long, mentored and so forth. Young woman from Mpumalanga, 24-year-old as well, who owns a warehouse from being trained. And this warehouse employs 10 people to it. So if we actually realize that entrepreneurship and various programs of self-empowerment can become self-sufficient, if each young person can create a program and a business that can employ 10, 20 people, we can beat unemployment in our country. We shouldn't be where we are.
Thank you for that. That was very interesting for myself, exactly. So obviously, I'm a London-based brand, and I did visit South Africa for 3 months, and I did notice that youth employment was very high. Now, my platform here that we're on today is trying to change that. I've got my own plans of simply because I do want to live in South Africa myself. So I can just imagine I'll have a family at some point when I'm there. And with my platform, how do I align myself? Because I've got projections of my own of reducing youth unemployment by at least 10% in the next 10 years. Okay. And yes, I'm a UK brand. But as you can see, the people that I work with who are working with myself are from South Africa. So I'm not just, pretending to say what I do. I'm literally doing what I say. And I do have a few other projects coming where I want to empower the youth through helping them develop through music and entertainment, which is basically what I do as it is now. How does one align himself with your institution, for example, to help more and maybe have alliances or get access to those resources to hire more people to reduce unemployment? Because I'm very, very passionate about that, but I'm more passionate about that as well in Africa as a diaspora, period. But in this conversation here with South Africa, how does ISN One align itself with government to reduce youth unemployment and give young people opportunities?
Look, no doubt, if you look at, you've got this platform, number one, you and I and everybody, we are talking and we are using social media, and it already is telling us how the world is connected. And we are in a digital era. Some of us know other social media more than others, and now you guys have taught me now in terms of getting into the life and so forth. My daughter has been trying to do that for a while, but no doubt also the future is tech, and tech will not wait for us. It moves very fast, and it's a transformative space that we utilize. In other areas, it comes with benefits, and we know how much it comes with benefits. And we also know how much it also can become disruptive. But also it's about the different sectors. And if I listen to you carefully about various sectors, including using music, arts, and so forth, which is a very important sector. And I always argue that creative sector, it's a multi-trillion dollar sector, and it's quite important that we realize when you exploit and you think about what we need to be doing in these sectors to be a part of change, you have to be already knowing what is your idea and your program and your agenda. What is the vision and mission? What are you trying to address? And if it's music, we all know music heals, music builds, music, people find resolute in that. So, but you need to win the hearts and minds of people, for people to love music, to love that entertainment sector. And also you can use music arts and creative sector to fight social injustices. We're battling with unemployment rate. We're also battling with social issues such as gender-based violence. Are we able to utilize the entertainment sector, to utilize digital spaces as a way to fight social injustices? So it's around how do we help in this character of changing social behavior for that matter. So when we then say, how do we have access? In fact, if you understand the makeup of South Africa, all the various departments, G-Star is here, you've got different departments in South Africa. You've got department like sports, arts and culture. Each program they run, they've got different grant opportunities. Whether it's an art council, they've got grant opportunities. Whether it's music, they've got grant opportunities. But also institutions that are linked with sports, arts and culture. You've got Department of Communication and Technology. Similarly, they've got conditional grants. So I may be having given you what we have in terms of NYDA, but all other departments, social development, as young people, as you say, the network itself, how it's operating, is it registered here? Because you have to become a legitimate complying institution in South Africa to have access to grant or financing opportunities.
I'm currently doing that now. So I'm getting my SARS number. And I'm currently going through that now. I'm just sending a lot of my paperwork that's from here over to just be verified so that I can open a business, because I've already got a business address that I can use to have a subsidiary. What it will be a subsidiary of ISN Network in South Africa.
Okay, that's good. But I think it's quite important so that the ownership also of a company that is setting up in South Africa, it's quite important that you also see value. So who are your partners that are South Africa locally based? Because you have to understand what are the advantages of running a company in South Africa that is not owned by a local. So you have to then consider those pros and cons. If it's co-owned, you then have to demonstrate who's this local. Because access to opportunity, South African government will always prioritize first South African people in terms of supporting, because we are trying to resolve issues of the country. So when you have an international company, even if it's setting up here, when you have international, often those who open companies and they are from outside, they would be considered like investors for that. So you're bringing investment here. You are not just setting up an institution just to only access resources from the local, and the local government will consider investing first in South Africa. So you have to look at all of those things. So if your partners are linked and are South African, then it does demonstrate in your kind of registration that this is co-owned company. These are young people utilizing business models, utilizing a partnership internationally, but this is how it benefits South African people. So you would have to demonstrate how many people will it be employing and so forth. So there are quite a lot of requirements that must be met for a kind of social support or conditional grant support for that company. But I do think that all opportunities that come has to be shaped to meet the demands or the priorities of our national development plan. And you understand our national development plan is just not a plan, it's a kind of a scientific evidence-based that has been put forward that really relates to meeting the 2063 agenda of the African Union, the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. But the government that I'm part of in this 7th administration, which is led by President Ramaphosa, who also myself come from the same organization called the African National Congress. We believe solely in how we need to liberate our own people. And that's why the policies maybe tired. We have many challenges, but we have so much progress. But it's about how young people grab these opportunities, how we also commit ourselves to making sure that we serve South Africans with total service to them, but also ensuring that we respond to the crisis of today. So for all of us to beat unemployment, President Ramaphosa, like he said, it's not just a government issue alone. It's to ensure that all members of society, private sector, NGOs are part of this. So ISN Network, it's quite important. It's a platform, it's initiative, but most importantly, it's about how we utilize it to benefit and grow the people and get young people into these opportunities. So very much so, I can say to you that the partnership you will have, partner with young people of South Africa who are based here, who understand the local context, and who also can ensure that they can use the models, they can use the vision of ISN Network to actually amplify the voices. But we want young people to thrive, and we want the economy in the hands of young people.
All right. So, what's the one thing about your role that most South Africans don't know but should know?
About my role, that's a funny one, must say. I think one thing is, it's really about how I'm one of those in the ministry, like my minister, we become flexible in terms of how we fight and continue to really protect the rights of people. Let me give you an example. The latest saga that we've been battling with, recently we've had reports about influencers. There is social media's disadvantages here. Influencers go out and say, young people, young women in particular, 18 to 22, we are recruiting you, you'll be taken to Russia for job offers. 18-year-old, 22-year-old recruited to Russia. These 18-year-old just finished matric, they must be going to universities or TVET colleges. We've got NEFSAS, we've got all of this. It might come with challenges, but at least we've got financing for education. So one of the things that you probably have seen is that we're saying, no, we don't want young South Africans to be exploited. First, let's check legitimacy. We know that we don't want our despair of unemployment to become a weapon, and we get to be weaponized, and we have young people to be exposed to vulnerability, abuse, or any kind of human trafficking or sex trafficking for that matter. So a lot of people don't really know that we continue to fight every single day and respond to many of the challenges like gender-based violence cases. And at times when we get this report, people think that I will go out and arrest. I can't go out and arrest people. It's SAP's responsibilities, the police service. But when I get to be informed about a case, I immediately will alert my colleagues to say we must respond with urgency. So for me, fighting for people and advocating for people is the urgency we want to see all the time.
Also, you actually segued it perfectly, because I was actually going to ask about this whole influencer scam situation going on, because at least some of the influencers came out with apologies, stating their side of the story as to why they had gone to Russia to go check if it's real and all that stuff. I'm curious though that how to ask this? Like, what's your, in as much as yes, you can't go and arrest them or hold them accountable, like whatever South Africa is actually saying that you should be doing. I'm curious how are we going to hold these individuals accountable, right? Especially under the Consumer Protection Act and other legislations, because I think it was so easy also for them to kind of fall for the trap, because one, they weren't paying attention to detail. as also, like 18-year-olds to 20-year-olds wouldn't, because they're quite impressionable, and because you're desperate, you want to make some sort of living for yourself after you've left school. So what is like the accountability that we're going to hold them to? Because also we don't want this to happen again. We know that if something wrong goes on and there isn't an actual punishment or an actual repercussion for that, it's very easy that the next person will also do the same thing, because nothing was done about the last incident. So what is that plan of action with your office, and how are we going to, I don't know, make this better, for lack of a better word?
Look, any kind of misinformation and disinformation becomes an offense. It's an offense in our country according to Cybersecurity Act. And I want us, people don't realize that there are repercussions. I've warned people even before. I've become such an unpopular because I almost like I police what is also happening. Why I'm doing it? Because it's part of our strategy, what we call the national strategy, a strategic plan on gender-based violence and femicide. You understand that we've got high levels of rape, of femicide in South Africa than any other country in the world. Even in SADC, Southern Africa, South Africa accounts to at least nothing less than 70% of cases that are happening in Southern Africa. But we're asking about, what is the accountability element? And to enforce these acts and laws and policies we have to act. We have actually developed a list. I'm glad many of them have come out, have apologized and so forth, but we want cooperation. First, if this is a syndicate that may put people's life at risk, the cooperation for them is that they need to come out and say, this is the person who've recruited me. So if I'm recruited by ISN Network, I must say who has recruited me, because that's how we break down the syndicate of any kind of trafficking. So they may be themselves have fallen victim to this because they also are influencers. That's how they make money. They saw dollars, they saw rands. They thought it's easy, do a video and I'm done. I get 20,000 or 5,000, whatever amount it was, or 100,000. I mean, even flying to Russia for that matter. But the fact that when people raise things, they started deleting videos, it already must give you a signal of those issues. So there are laws. South Africa is a country that has a rule of law. It may be that our weakness becomes how we consistently have officials that don't enforce laws. But this seventh administration, we're saying this will not happen again. So we already have alerted, specific departments that must look into it, including our Department of International Relations, to first also engage Russia, because you'd understand South Africa and Russia have got diplomatic cooperation that stems long time ago. So if there is something that is happening that may not be of sense to governments, they too, Russian and South African government, must cease to eliminate anything that may risk security of the two countries and that may risk the security of the people in the country. And in this case, it is one of the things that we came out strong to say that we will do anything to protect South African. That's a commitment we did. Or why else am I saving South African people if at all I'm not going to raise an alarm, address it, and we act on it? So there will be accountability, of course, and government will be allowed to actually act on it based on observing those rules of law. But it needs to be the cross and balances of it, and we need to be very clear so that we don't also just risk the lives of those we want to hold accountable. But if there are young women that have already flown into Russia, we don't want to lose them. We want to bring them back safely home.
Thank you for that. As an outsider, living in London at the moment and looking at this situation that's happening, you have mentioned that obviously I understand that there's diplomatic ties between Russia and South Africa. But I don't want to put you on the spot because I don't expect you to answer this question straight away because my assumption would be you may not know. But how quickly will the South African government start intervention to ensure that one, this doesn't happen again, and actually bring back the people that are in Russia, and also the people that have been lost to potentially trafficking, who may not be in Russia now, and they're now in different parts of the world, or maybe even, you know, their lives being lost. What will the government do to? I know it's a big question, but how will the government, or how will you and the government make that right?
Look, first, you and I are using TikTok. You would understand that the content that you and I are speaking about is not regulated. South Africa doesn't regulate the creating space. So you have podcasts. Podcasts are not regulated in the country. But what is regulated is the platforms. So TikTok can be the one taken to task as opposed to you as an account holder. It will be TikTok that must deal with you, but we will deal with TikTok. YouTube is a platform that podcast uploads their videos, so we regulate the platforms. But also because many of these platforms are international platforms. And then, you know, there are all these, you know, if you're going to fight it, if TikTok doesn't have an office in South Africa, then you have to think about, oh, is it an American company or is it where it's coming from, Facebook and so forth. So this is complex. It's not just a simple matter. But how we need to think about this, it's more than just a response, it's a prevention issue. It's a prevention issue. And it starts with looking at how many people use social media and what is the usage of social media. Now, some people, when we were challenging issues around regulating podcasts, they thought, no, you know, the censorship, you hate podcasts, blah, blah, blah. I don't hate podcasts. I actually want all these young people driving these digital platforms to survive. I want them to thrive. My argument is whether we can utilize these platforms to build a South Africa we want, so that it's not harmful. We've got children, we've got young people that we want them, like this ISN Network. You know, this is an educational moment. But I'm not also saying that people shouldn't have crazy moment on their accounts. We don't want to do this censorship, but we can be responsible adults in the way we give dignity to every South African, every global citizen, because that builds and demonstrates our humanity and dignity for all, so that we don't then utilize and abuse these spaces to become actually harmful towards others. So we want every platform to become that, but it means that we need online safety measures. I mean, right now, a young man in Hammanskraal, I think it's Hammanskraal, just a few days ago, murdered her girlfriend, went onto social media and confessed. It already tells you that social media, how people even use and abuse these spaces. Because, I mean, how do we do that? What kind of society are we trying to build? And sometimes we may be, oh, you know, that's people's personal account. They can do just about anything. Right now, people even have got social media accounts. And in those social media accounts, they become faceless. For me to join you, I've got a name and surname. My account can be traced back to me. But we want the same for every account that exists, so that we don't act in behaviors that are very harmful. You need to then say, who is G Star? Who is Mandams? How do you actually trace back all of these things? Because we all have identities. We cannot be faceless. Digital era does not necessarily mean that we can abuse it to harm others, but we also can become faces of these profiles and account, and we use them responsibly. So for me, the prevention, the big part of it is prevention. You can understand that issues, if you take other example of digital platforms and you're saying, why do we have to regulate and what is the setting? Parents, families are using smartphones, they use iPads, laptops, but they don't even know how to utilize the safety features in it. That you buy a 2-year-old a smartphone, when they are 7, they already know, in fact, they even know how to operate these things. But because they are exposed to this information outside, so it's easy even for children to be exposed to pornography. So what are the safety measures do we even impart? So that then speaks about digital literacy. So the prevention around digital literacy, and that we are saying, don't deny people access to digital era. We're in the fifth industrial revolution. Next time you and I will be speaking will also become another. So there we are. So it's quite important to make sure that the revolution of digital era doesn't become a weapon of society. We must use it to benefit us. Young people are getting jobs from these spaces. They run their e-commerce. People sell things. But why not when it comes to our social interaction? Can it not be safe? It shouldn't just be an economic question. It should become a political question of safety and security, so that we don't undermine our own sovereignty to safety. We actually protect it. We must guard our country with everything we do. We must guard the world safety as well.
All right. So, many young people say they've never heard of these policies, right? To make them more visible, especially when you're speaking on these platforms such as TikTok, WhatsApp, or community radios. So, what can be done for them to know about these policies on these platforms? Because remember, we're living in a world of digital, like you said. So, in order for us to get in touch with the youth, sometimes maybe social media can be used.
Mandamase, it's quite important that we don't limit our information to just about a few people. This information is available. The policies needs to be promoted every now and then. You take, for instance, young people. How many young people even know our constitution? This very same constitution that we speak about, that was enacted in 1996, that speaks about the Bill of Rights, the constitution that tells you that we are trying to repair the injustice of the past. Young people cannot, and I want to say, be ignorant to their own information. I think, yes, we have to look at how do we communicate, how do we improve access to information and so forth. But this information, if I've got a smartphone and I can go on TikTok, I can go on Twitter, it's now X and so forth, that means I can take a moment and say policies of safety and security and constitution and so forth. What are the most important things, or the fastest thing that young people will always speak to, and they will say, I've got rights. Do they know those rights? That's number one. Number two, do they know rights comes with responsibility? Government has got what we call civic education. And this is where you find it even to the local level. This is through Salga. If you actually go to every government building, you will find a poster that gives you certain things like Batupili principles. Those principles are called people first. And you will see another poster that says Basic Employment Act. You find another policy. These policies are everywhere. If you go to the police station, if you enter a police station, it will tell you what the police station is doing and what can you do if you're not happy with the service. If you go to a court, if you go to the Department of Health, clinics, hospital, there's always posters. Sometimes it's just as simple as reading. Take 2 minutes, read, so that you know. Nothing is built without knowledge. Knowledge is something that will help us to actually work together. So I know, I always say to my colleagues now, maybe we need to look at a different way now of communicating. Young people are not going to just go and look for that. Let's take this moment and say, let's speak about this policy. Like we've done. Right now, you are tackling the most pressing issue. So that means now, how do we advertise a network sessions of this nature so that we reach much more young people and who are joining? I see many people joining, liking this live session. And I think it's quite important that we then say, how do we then share this information? If it's about regulation, let's do those sessions. So it means that the network is able to actually then say, we're going to have sessions every Wednesday for 30 minutes, so that it's not long. Young people get bored. They've got this, what do they call it? This
Short attention span.
Attention span. If you speak too long with these technical things, they're gonna get bored. So we can actually make it fun and deliver a session in the most creative but most there it is, short attention span, for that. So I really do think it's quite important to look at creative ways. And when you spoke about the sector that you are in, arts and whatever, you use creative ways. Tap on the brilliance of young people to learn about creative ways. Now, you don't only need old people to speak about things, you need young people to speak about these regulations and what they mean for them.
Thanks for saying what I've always been trying to say, that we're all old on this platform. Thank you. I've been saying that for a long time, but some people don't want to accept it. I have a question here from Mr. Sky. He's a regular person that comes on our lives. One of the questions he asked you was, will this regulation get to a point of tracking and monitoring to ensure online safety and security?
Okay, and I see also a subsequent question about the measure that government will be taking. Look, the most important thing, it's really about, I was assessing different countries have introduced different things. You've got what was introduced in America called the takedown policy. And I actually think the UK has done the same now recently, called the takedown policy. Because you see, when you speak about a regulating a platform, you can imagine how many platforms exist. There are just few popular ones that we are using, which is X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. But there are many more others, WhatsApp, Telegram, and so forth. These are online platforms. Now, you are not going to have anyone who sits and do whatever. But other countries do that, by the way, which is what often is labeled censorship. You have other countries, you will never use other social media. It's closed. South Africa is a country that says you've got freedom of speech, you've got free media, freedom from censorship and so forth. All of these things exist. But what we then say is that should it be then that the online safety institutions, there are online safety institutions that now monitors. and like online lab. When we started this work and we engage with online lab, they are actually starting to monitor. You've got Media Watch, you've got Social Media Watch. All of these institutions now are helping to try keep these online spaces safe for people. Now, it will help us to track and monitor, because then you also need to track the trend of this abuse of online. You get the people, you hold them accountable. I did indicate to you that we've got laws such as Cyber Security Act. Once those kind of laws are enforced consistently, you will have a reduced abuse on online, where fake news shouldn't be trending. I mean, things like the misinformation that was happening even earlier this year. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. You know, even people want asylum outside South Africa. So, and people are talking about genocide in South Africa. So, while we believe that crime in the country exists, many people are killed in the Cape Flats, in Easterus, in El Dorado, everywhere, in Attridgeville, in everywhere. But we have to make sure that even in online spaces, because those scams that we find online, people stealing people's money, people, what do they call this? Catfish, or whatever it's the language that is used.
Catfishing, yes, correct. Catfishing.
Yes, people pretend, so I have to learn all these languages, whatever that people are doing to scam. It's weird. It's a weird world. So yes, indeed, Sky Hadebe, we have to really make sure that while we want the streets that we live in, the communities we live in, to be safe, we also want the online platform to be safe. Like I said, these online platforms also comes with benefits. We wouldn't have this big group engaging if at all it wasn't the creativity of online, but we want it to be a safe space for all as well.
I think to that point also, I'm reminded of a thing that I saw on like News 24, I think. And Dr. Gwen Ramokgopa recently warned against like an analysis paralysis when it comes to the ANC. How is your office also moving from kind of reflection of seeing what went wrong or what has been going wrong and the lack of maybe action, and how are you moving from reflection to action? And how are you rebuilding also the trust with the youth, because misinformation is rife, right? And also unemployment is rife, so we're kind of also losing faith in government putting young people first and really propelling them to be the best that they can be. So how is your office helping with that?
Look, indeed, what Dr. Gwen Ramokgopa had put out there in terms of analysis paralysis, it's a characterized way that we should not just take what we are being fed as just a total sound of information. We should be able to interrogate what we are being fed. But South Africa's story, it's one complex story, and we should never be ignorant to it. Our history of oppression, you cannot actually assume that apartheid has ended in 1994. Politically, yes, but the system of apartheid exists. So to dismantle this system of apartheid, it's a big, big duty. Out of so many years that the ANC continued to fight, and even to imagine and to even say that we need a national democratic revolution, to even come out, you would say our forefathers and foremothers were prophets, because to come up with a document such as Freedom Charter that says doors of learning, the land shall be shared, and so forth, it's already projecting what must happen in the future. And it already tells us when we are free, we must get to it. Now, politically, we became free, but systematically, we did not become free. because you now need to dismantle systems of oppression to now, what we are fighting for is the economic emancipation of people. The inequality that we say we've got triple threat of unemployment, inequality, as well as poverty. You now have to dismantle the economic threat. Many people were relegated outside the economic hub. It's only in this democratic era that people are now starting to integrate, come closer to the world of work, come closer to the school, open up opportunities, get access, walk freely, do all of that. But to assume that is a job done, it's not a job done. And it means that every sector is important. Here is ISN Network, and you're saying that you are registering a company here. One of the things that I said to you, make sure it benefits local.
Yeah.
So it's a total ownership. You can't change the situation of South Africans if South Africans don't own the land, if South Africans don't own the means of production. It's a material condition we must change. So we need to be urgently doing it. We need to urgently make sure, when we spoke about the doors of learning shall be open, we meant it. In 1994, we only had less than 200,000 people who graduated. Now we've got millions of South Africans graduating. What we must do is facilitate a smooth transition from education into workforce. Yes. And we also speak about what did we find in 1994. 36% of people in South Africa had only access to electricity. Now we are 97% South Africans. It might be load shedding, load reduction, whatsoever, but 97% of South Africans have got access to electricity. Now we are fighting inequality. Guys, it's very difficult. Now, people are also saying that, of course, the African National Congress has failed and so forth. ANC is no longer relevant. ANC is relevant more than anything. ANC is still the only party that becomes the legitimate one to actually ensure that the National Democratic Revolution is still achieved. And I'm saying this because South Africans need to realize, families, you may be angry, but you're not going to actually burn your mother's house because your brother stole your bread or your sandwich or something. You must deal with your brother who stole. You must be able to deal with individuals of ANC, because ANC cannot be an institution that actually becomes or collapses because we never delivered on the NDR. We have delivered small parts of components, the same way we are fighting gender inequality, why women are not paid enough or fair amounts, the same way as men, why young people don't have a lot of... So the complexity of the issues exist. We must all do it in the understanding of the journey we're supposed to be walking. And 30 years, I want to say to you, Gista, 30 years, we've been fighting centuries of oppressive system, and we expect to have achieved things in 30 years. Former President Thabo Mbeki says, when we got into government, we found a desk and a plan. Things went missing. Things went missing. Things went missing, including some of the leases, the land ownership, and so forth. So to set up policy, to set up government, to set up laws in democracy that says that everyone is diverse was a very problematic, difficult thing to be doing, while you're then saying people must reconcile. Many of us as young people, many of us are still struggling with problems of the past. South Africans are struggling with problems of the past around reconciliation. How do you repair the injustices of the past? Of knowing how much people in Clifffontein were massacred. The young people of 1976 were massacred. So how do you reconcile, but also while you're trying to build? So we are very resilient people. We know we can do it, and I think we can build South Africa if all of us commit. We can complain all we like, but until we demonstrate that the 4 of us, the 10 of us, the 12 of us, the group of us that are committed to making it work, we can actually do it together. If we show that commitment and we support one another, I'm here, and I'm here to support young people. Call me, I will be there to support young people. You are here to support your government as well. Hold your government account. Don't be shy to hold your government accountable. Do it. But as long as we know we are building a country that all of us can be proud of. He's in London. There's nothing for us in London. That's why he's also coming here in South Africa. We are here and we are going nowhere. We are building South Africa.
Today is not the day to tell you my love for South Africa, but we can have that one offline of how all of this started. But I won't bore you with the details. But yes, I do agree. A lot of the perception is that as an African, life in London is very great. And people are always surprised when I tell them that that's not the case. Yes, there is an economic factor that comes across beneficial, but once you factor in what somebody in the UK pays for their rent or mortgage or lifestyle, you shortly understand very quickly that there's not much going on. Whereas my experience when I was in South Africa was very different. Just way of living, how people are, the sun, which is something you can clearly see that I need. So yes, life is in South Africa, of course.
I think just to take you back also, Honorable, sorry. I think I just wanted to ask with regards to you saying that, we are a resilient country and we should be, holding our leaders accountable. I think the recent decline also, right, of supporting key districts and the growing youth disillusionment, right? How is the ANC reimagining its relationship with young voters and young people? Because I think also, I think the last election, not a lot of young people did actually vote, and I think that's because we are kind of just losing faith in the fact that our vote matters and our vote actually is going to help us in the future. So how are we rebuilding that trust with young voters so we don't run into the same issues as we did, for example, last year or the year before?
You can only build trust when you are connected to people. We've got ANC Youth League, we've got SASCO, we've got COSAS, these are student movements, but you also have structures of the ANC. ANC is everywhere. And ANC is a home of everybody. It's not just a home. Whether you are a card-carrying member or not, it's immaterial. ANC is an organization of the people. So it means that all of us, including young people themselves, and that's why it's as simple as walking down the road, going to the nearest branch. You see, you cannot have arrogant leaders. You must have leaders that are open to be working with young people. Take time, engage young people, listen to young people, include young people. And this is why even the policies of the ANC has even made provision about young people's leadership, generational mix, and so forth. But after being elected, you must also get off that high horse, go down to the ground, work with young people. I'm not elected to just be sitting somewhere in the helicopter context. I'm elected to serve the people. That means even in difficult times, you have gone to spaces where I find even conversation as hard, people going on, wanting to chop my head off. But the discipline of the organization and the school of thought of the ANC says that you are there, you are listened. You must kill the spirit of self. So, and those are the words of Mam Charlotte McClurg, kill that spirit of self Do not live above your people, but with them. So if we all emulate it and go down, work with people, young people, educate young people, listen to young people, resolve challenges young people are experiencing. Don't think young people they don't have answers for everything. They are wanting to exist, to live, to experience, to champion and whatever. So you've got that. Create that space, but also create it in the best way that they too can relate to those things. So it must be relevant to the young people today. So it's quite important that we do so. You know, I was interested. There was this young girl during the national dialogue. I was actually shocked, but I accepted. And the first question I asked was, who's her mentor? This young girl with a school uniform at the national dialogue. You can see that school uniform, very expensive school uniform. I mean, I went to a township school. You wear a tunic, there's no cap. She was wearing a hat. You can see a top school. But the way she was so
I'm not sure what her surname is, but I think her name is Sandra, because she was like all over my For You page on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so like groundbreaking to see a young person really having these conversations with the president directly.
Sure.
That was
But I think for me, the most important thing is that even when you have that young person has been elected to represent voices of young people. And why I was saying that she spoke powerfully, she spoke relevant things, but now we need to tune it in terms of a way that helps to nurture. We don't want that young person's future to be destroyed because nobody helped. You know, you get young people raw, but you have to take that raw diamond and clean it up, shine it, so that it becomes, that's a next future leader. And we want to be able to say, while we have freedom of speech, we can actually deliver. So you don't have to disrespect. Something about us as Black people, and I think this is important. We know how to respect each other and our elders. And I don't have to be your elder for you to respect me. You must just naturally do it. And even as my peers, we cannot lose the moral fabric of humanity and respect. You know, that's the moral conduct of that fabric. Is very important for us. That way it will help us socially, that elders, I can deliver my message to you to saying, you have failed me, without casting aspersion on you and saying how stupid and how useless you are. That for me loses fabric, because now I start losing a respect for you because of the way you speak. And this way it will help you, because even how we deal with issues of abuse, why would a man rape a 7-month-old? Because you're supposed to see this child as your child. Why would you slap your peer or kill your girlfriend? Because you're supposed to be seeing a human being. So we cannot lose the social fabric of our humanity, that respect, that moral conduct that helps us to speak. African culture, it doesn't matter in Uganda, in Tunisia, in South Sudan, in South Africa, in Lesotho, in Zimbabwe, it doesn't matter. Ubuntu is something that we were taught in our families. And when you see some behaviors that actually takes away the dignity and integrity of people, we must address it face on. So while I like that young girl, but I asked who's mentoring her, because we know how to support one another and we know how to really clean this diamond so that she still become a relevant young leader and the voice of reason, but she also do it responsibly.
I just wanted to highlight, we have a listener called Conquer of Christ. She said that she's a young public servant and sometimes feel that she's voiceless due to the older generation. You've kind of touched on having respect, but even for me, although I'm old, I do sometimes struggle, when you're speaking to elders, when you're trying to get your point across. Now, as she's a public servant, if, for example, the elders are not listening, what advice would you give to her to maybe go a different way to get the same result back?
Sure. I think conquer of Christ, you are raising a very important point. What is quite interesting about the generations in South Africa, we've got multiple generations in this country of ours. We've got older people as old as 80 years, as old as 70 years, and as old as 50 or whatever, born in a different era.
Yeah, boomers, millennials, Gen Z Alpha. I know them.
There you are. That's the correct language now used these days. But you've got all these different generations. But what is different, and why am I raising this? They too were born and they grew up in a time where they were not allowed to speak as young people. And we are in an era where we are allowed to speak. So there are quite a number of things that we need to learn and unlearn. And there are quite a number of things that they need to learn and unlearn so that we all coexist in a way that respects one another. And you see, if I give you a typical example, I work with a lot of young people and we're talking about how do we reduce HIV infection in our country, blah, blah. And, the bottom line is you're going to have to talk about sex to actually start to deal with HIV. And then you say, oh, are parents talking to their children about sex and sexuality or whatever? Body changes. Parents are saying,
just for TikTok, can you say smex? Because it will come and take off our life if you don't say that for TikTok.
There we are, smex. For that matter. So even for instance, let me give you another example. It's about menstrual health. A child who's supposed to have these body changes, are we as a parent telling, oh, at 12 or at a particular age, your body is going to change. It's going to develop, it's going to grow, and you start having one or two things. So those are the things you have to consider in all of these things. But older parents will be like, I'm not going to have that conversation. And it becomes difficult because they were never taught to talk about those things. So I understand when you're saying in the public service, now it's a workspace. And you've got this very same, these are parents, these are human beings, these are society members. Nothing changes. By going to a service, nothing changes. The same person that when they leave that sector, they go back. And this is why when we introduced mainstreaming, Batopeli principles, is that your learning must never affect the service that you are providing. Neither should it be that it affects how you coexist with your colleagues or you engage with your colleagues in a particular manner. So you've got all these challenges that it's about behavior, it's about socialization, and those issues exist. But what I can say to you, how you deal with those things, the human resource department, of your department or people who are responsible have to look at ways on how to deal with, culture, organizational culture, how to deal with reporting, how to deal with communication. So it's about values of an institution. I've led institutions before, and even in the lifelong part in terms of institutions that I've lived and led. Some of the things that I always say, I don't micromanage. I don't like managing because I know what it means to be micromanaged. People ask me, what are you doing? What have you been doing for the last 8 hours? I know, I hate it. So I don't do those things. But I also have a culture that I don't like hierarchy. So we might have titles, but I don't like hierarchy because that allows me to engage with a cleaner or a general assistant in my organization, the same way I'm dealing with a CFO. All of us are in the same ecosystem. We've got different roles. We are employed for different roles, but our humanity and our human doesn't take a hierarchy. We are all men, women that must coexist and see each other for our human more than just titles we hold. What matters if you are going to be a CFO versus a general assistant? But if at all you can't behave in a manner that respects one another, you lose it. So I can just simply say it's culture, but if there's any kind of abuse, it must be reported.
I totally align with that. I'll let G Star come in, but yeah, she keeps calling me boss, and I keep telling her to stop it, because I don't see the reason for all these type of titles. I don't. Just call me Isaac, and it's fine.
Chris, for me, it's just like to get a reaction out of Isaac, because I like, for me, my ADHD, I'll do anything for a free dopamine hit. So for me, I'm always just like interested to see how he goes. No, I don't, like, that's not me. So like I just do that to really just like be trolling you. Minister, not to take up too much of your time. Also, I'm aware that we really are going over time. But I think let me ask the last question, and then maybe Amanda Master can just also come in, and then I don't know, Isaac, if you'll have a last question, but we'll just all have one last. Oh, okay, fine. So I'll ask a question, and then Madam Master, I think she might have one, and then we can just wrap it up, and maybe we can have a part two. I don't know, because there's actually so many other questions that we haven't gone around to, like also like issues like GBV and things like that. And I really would love to hear more about, how your office is helping and is also dealing with those things. I think it was in 2020 when with the National Strategy Plan on GBV was launched. What tangible progress has been made since then? Because honestly, like you mentioned earlier, that there are incidents where partners are killing their people are killing their partners and going on social media to actually I also have to say unalive, not that word. People are unaliving their partners and going to social media to actually confess, right? What tangible progress has been made since the National Strategic Plan, especially in rural areas and underserved areas?
Okay, let's take the last other question, because when I respond, I'll just be brief and we knock off afterwards. Let's take Manda Mase's question as well.
All right. I wanted to ask, what role does your office play in cross-party collaboration, especially when it comes to national healing and youth development?
Okay, were those the last two questions, Gista?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so it's okay. Yes, those are the last two questions. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I know.
Let's deal with your comment first, and to look at part two. I'm happy to engage with yourselves. Let's create this space. I don't mind committing an hour every month for your sessions. That way we can go in depth, because then it allows us to go in depth conversation on a topic. So if it's a GBV, like today we're talking unemployment and some of the issues so that we unpack it. Even gender-based violence, we must unpack it. Why are we here? Why do we actually find issues of GBV? Because you have to look into the economic situation of people. Why are women stuck in relationships that are not serving? But also, what's going on with men? Because I don't want to only also address the issue of GBV as if like it's a women issue. Why do we have men abusing? Because one case is more than enough. So we have to then unroot all of those things. So indeed, we've got a national strategic plan launched, and there are quite a lot of progress. We've looked at the issues around bail, where laws that have been enacted, about 3-4 laws have been enacted in the last 24 months by President Ramaphosa, that looks at the bail conditions, that looks at, itself setting up the National Gender-Based Violence Council. But we have also, even in the last 3 months, launched what we call the 90-day, dealing with the backlog in the justice system. Some cases are difficult when you don't have witnesses. Some cases are fast when you've got witnesses and the perpetrators are found. Some cases took longer, some cases take shorter period. I mean, we've had a death sentence judgment in a magistrate court. These are breaking grounds, because in the past, a death sentence or a life sentence judgment, rather, not death sentence. Life sentence judgment will, in the past, you would have found those kind of cases in high courts. So you can see that the system, whether in terms of justice system, it's not moving as fast as we want, but it's there. We've got sexual offenses courts and so forth. But what is other things that have been quite useful in this? We have about 65 Tutuzela Care centers in South Africa. What are Tutuzela Care Center? It's what we call one-stop shop. If I get raped, I don't have to find a police station. I can just find a hospital. And what is one-stop shop? It means that the police would need to come to me, psychosocial support, medical care, kids, and all of it in one stop. So people must know that you don't necessarily have to go to a police station immediately. You can go straight to a hospital. And many of the academic hospital, many of the hospital closer, if you go to a clinic, they will take you immediately to a hospital. You can report rape, so that what we don't lose in terms of rape is what
grape, Minister. The word for grape. TikTok, grape.
Grape. Yeah, I'll get used to your language there in terms of what words we can use and not use. So if one has experienced grape, for that matter, it will help that you get one-stop. We don't have to frustrate survivors. We don't have to frustrate victims. But those centers are there everywhere across the country. We need forensic evidence so that we can hold perpetrators accountable. So we have unlocked the issues around the backlog, the forensic backlog, where many of the cases were stuck because of evidence. So those are some of the progress. The shelter movements are being supported, not enough resources. We know what is happening globally about resources. Those things exist, and we need to really address how we resolve those issues that we are confronted with. So those are some of the progress, but I can unlock those in the next sessions. Now, Mandamase, you've asked the issue about the office and in terms of developmental support. I want us to have that specific session, because it's not only just about what we do as an office, it's about what government does as a whole of government. All the departments are interconnected. Some people think that, no, maybe there's just this department is responsible. If you actually look at the work that we do with the Department of Land reform, so that we make sure that women have got access to land, but doesn't end there. Then we work with Department of Business Development that takes women and youth and persons with disability business, and it doesn't end there. They take it where your business is and they help you, they buy equipment and so forth. So it's about opportunities and the spectrum of these opportunities and how do we facilitate all of that. But the last point I want to say, there's a very important department, trade and industry, and we've signed up multilateral agreements in the region and globally. When people have got businesses, now this is about markets. You are not only just tapping on the South African market. How do we tap on the global market, Africa market? Africa is important. If we are not going to grow Africa, guys, forget, we will be failing this region.
That's the whole point. Yeah, great.
So for me, the most important thing, Africa, and that's why the global north and all these other continents fear Africa, because of its potential. We've got the resources, we've got the people, we've got the youngest population, and we can make things work. So we need to unite. We need to make sure that Africa works and we tap on the potential of Africa. So I'm just raising all of these things to say that developmental issues are not just and mustn't be seen as just one aspect. It's about how do we make sure that we thrive in all these. But most importantly, when you think development, business, and all of these things, it's about also tapping on the value chain, total value chain of a business sector as well. I hope this was useful, and I'm really Definitely happy that I joined your session. Full 2 hours dedicated to you guys, and I really thank this engagement.
Thank you too, also, Minister. I'm also actually shocked that we went to a whole 2 hours. I was supposed to be, just 1 hour. But thank you so much. We appreciate your commitment also to this open conversation, of transparency, of action, and also just kind of educating the youth, right? And I love what you said. Part of this interview, you said the only way to kind of rebuild the trust with young people is to be with the young people, is to come down to wherever they are. I really hope that we do get a part two, right? And we carry on these conversations so the youth can actually know what is happening and how to actually equip themselves, right? Thank you so much. We're eager to keep this conversation going, so hopefully we get to see you again. But thank you, tons. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, so there you have it, guys. We got through that. Shout outs to G Star, head of what's your title at ISN? Sorry.
Head of Public Affairs and
Right. So shout out to G Star for getting that interview over the line, guys. Make sure you follow all of us, or should I say, follow who you found more interesting.
Follow Nina.
Follow Nina. Well, I mean, it's not your. But yeah, guys, just make sure you follow. Make sure you follow anyone ISM because you'll get the notification. We appreciate your time. We will have more conversations like this. Conquer of Christ. We will discuss about adding people on. The only issue that I am very concerned about is we're not able to verify callers like we are on radio. So for the minister, I'm just very careful about who just comes on to the live before they start asking questions that are maybe controversial just because we've let them come up. So yeah, I'll deliberate with the team how we will get around that so that everybody has an opportunity, because I'm sure Sky as well, who's an avid listener, would have been lovely. If you want to come up now though,